JB here. April 29th, 2022. Just going to be really quick here. We have about 12 minutes to the open. Uh, Want to talk about Roku, obviously. They had earnings after the close yesterday. Really quick about that. Talk about this US dollar situation. US dollar hitting decade highs. I think it was 7 days in a row to the upside. And today it looks like it's taking a little breather. But I think that's an important story because of what's going on with inflation. And then Zyme, ticker ZYME, one of my top five stocks back in the day. A name I was watching, and then sure enough, what happens after the close yesterday? They received an unsolicited buyout offer for 100% premium from where the stock closed. So interesting story nonetheless. But first, I'll talk about Roku. I added some May 6 calls into earnings yesterday. High risk, high reward. Obviously, if they posted a huge beat and raise that surprised everybody, the stock would be into the 120, 130 range. They reported a great quarter, in my opinion. Uh, I think it's 28% year revenue growth. They added 1.2 million active accounts, and their average revenue per user went up from $41 the previous quarter to nearly $43 this past quarter. And this is in the face of everything that's going on with COVID and the Netflix earnings that kind of caused concerns in the streaming space. I think it's a great quarter, and then they reaffirmed their guidance into next year. In my opinion, it's just a great story. Once they get the platform into the customer's home, then it's about monetizing that platform. They continue to grow the revenue per each user in the home, so it's just a win-win. And the monetization of the platform is the high margin revenue, as opposed to getting the platform in the home or to have it pre-installed on a TV. I think 1 in 5 TVs in South America have it, and the same with the US. It's already pre-installed. And not only that, I think I just posted in the chat room, but they talked about marketers who are in that space. They're spending more on Roku, 80% year over year on the Roku streaming platform, and pulling back from legacy TV. And then another stat from their earnings was that the reach on TV streaming surpasses legacy pay TV. So the reach of a platform like Roku and all these other platforms, they surpassed your legacy cable provider. So all good stuff. And Roku has had in the past, every time it reports earnings, a lot of times it sells off and then bounces during the market when the market opens. Not saying it's going to go nuts at the open, but I could see it going into low to mid hundreds today, if not higher, after the open. And I think they're kind of waiting for the open. Please don't go too high, so I can get in. I think it goes over 100 and if not higher. So I might add some speculative 105 or even higher strikes that expire today to add to my strikes that expire next week. So that's Roku. So the US dollar story. So we had the GDP number come out yesterday, negative for the first time post-COVID. Now the threats of a recession are real. We have another negative read for quarter two, and we're in a recession. But I think the market's kind of priced that in. And yesterday's rally, I think, was a pulling off the Band-Aid where people okay, we got this out in the open. We're probably going to be in a recession. Let's just move on. And market's a very good forward-looking indicator where I think the market says, hey, growth economy's still going to be doing fine. Some bumps with the war in Ukraine and what's going on with inflation and logistical concerns, the shutdown and COVID issues in China, all those things, you wrap them together, and I think we start looking past that. And I think the market, I'm not saying we're going to get into a bull market or what have you, but I think there's opportunity to play for upside. But I think the other thing that people are going to be overlooking, and this weekend will be the recession headlines, but it should be about the US dollar. If you take a look at the US dollar, a strong U.S. dollar benefits, especially these small cap names in the U.S. who don't have a lot of international exposure in regards to their business being international, but they need to get supplies, parts, chips, all that from abroad. And when you have a strong U.S. dollar, your costs go down. It costs less. Right? You're buying a chip that was $200. Now it only costs $180 because the dollar is appreciated so much. On the flip side, so if you're a business that exports a lot, of course that'll hurt you. So if you have a lot of customers in Europe and China, Japan, which the yen has been getting hurt a little bit, then that hurts you because it costs more for a consumer in Japan to buy your product than it did 10 days ago or a week ago. So those are some of the issues there. But I think if you're looking at what the issue with inflation is, that all these your resources that cost the cost for the resource to build your product in the U.S., those have been going up because of inflation. But now that you have a stronger U.S. dollar, it kind of alleviates some of that. So I don't think people are looking at the stronger U.S. dollar in the right kind of lens, and I think that that bodes well. At least maybe it helps offset some of the cost concerns, and maybe instead of passing off those higher costs to consumers, now the U.S. dollar is offsetting that. So I think that can be construed as bullish, and especially if the U.S. dollar continues to appreciate. And it also helps the U.S. debt too. So people always look to lower U.S. dollar. China has all this U.S. debt that they hold, but the stronger the dollar, the better it is for the debt situation. So that's the U.S. dollar. Other names I'll be watching today, Spotify, which reported, I thought their earnings were not too bad, and the stock sold off quite a bit after the report. Started to bounce yesterday. Maybe that's a lotto. Gets over 105, 110 today. Amazon, which reported its first quarterly loss in nearly 7 years. That might be tough. Unless it gets down to 2,500, maybe I'll look for some lottos. The calls and the puts can be very expensive right at the open. That's going to be a tough one. Dexcom reported earnings. They're going to have a split in May. Stock's down here at 390. Oh, actually, it's 405 now. That could be a nice bounce play. And you have some of these analysts just adjusting the price, their price targets based on compressions with all the things going on with higher rates. But that could be a nice bounce play for move maybe into the 415, 420 range. And every time Dexcom reports, I always look at Tandem. TNDM is the ticker. That's sitting here at $98. Just a great story, especially with Medtronics having issues with their diabetic. I forget their product, but there's issues with the FDA, which is just a great positive catalyst for TNDM, especially into their earnings, which I think will be on May 4th. So it'll be next week. So maybe a name I'll look to get calls into next week. I think that's it for now. I'll try and get back on the audio later today. Let's have a great day. Rock and roll.